Dude, this shot took so fucking long. All right, you want to say something to the camera?
Hey, what's up? My name is Miles. I was a PA on Marie. Wouldn't have happened without me there. It's a cool project to work on. Let's get into it.
Hell yeah. I'm just gonna talk to you, Miles. I think that'll make me more comfortable.
Look at this freaking sick ass shot that we got right here.
This is kind of what it starts as. It's just a woman. She just kind of screams. This is our fantastic performer, Sydney Miles. Just performing to absolutely nothing, which is incredibly fucking hard to do. The shot would not work if not for her commitment and performance. So first thing that I noticed was that unfortunately the area around her wrist had completely come off. We had to do a couple of patches, which just look like that. You just pull it into Photoshop, create a little patch, and then we have to track those on, which is its own little nightmare of a process. It's not perfect, but ideally when it's in motion, you just kind of don't notice it. So another thing that we did was we wanted to make it look like she was bleeding from her arm. So starting just with regular kind of blood stock footage that I've got from the pack somewhere. Go ahead and track it over her arm. On set, I recorded a bunch of close-up images of her arm. So we have, I think it was about 1,000 or so images. Pretty standard photogrammetry stuff. And then we rebuilt all of that in reality capture. Let's see, I can't remember how to navigate the camera. There we go. Point cloud that then gets turned into a 3D mesh. And I didn't actually need that for the CG. What I really needed that for was for tracking. I essentially ended up using the photogrammetry scan of the arm, peeled out just a piece of the plate, and then I tracked that to the plate itself. So we can kind of see what that looks like. So I basically just used this piece to match up, lined up with this little piece of her arm in here, and we just hand tracked it using keying tools, and then built ourselves a little minigun, given a little grody inside of her arm, and then render all that into separate layers, an occlusion or diffuse. The little fake plate was actually the harder thing to figure out. Animating it was easy enough. I ended up just reprojecting a literal frame onto a piece of 3D geometry. Because if you look closely on the final composite, you can see that the light on it is completely baked in from where it was in its original position, but repainting all that light was just not going to be something in our time budget. So what can you do? There's also a blood spurt. Let's see, is that this? No, we're actually going to skip that because I forgot that was in there and it didn't work. If we go down to where the panel is, you can see that there's a bunch of blood under her arm. So I ended up just doing a liquid simulation for that. So that's just the blood, and it's a small little detail, but it just gives it a little bit more movement in an otherwise very, very, very slow motion shot. So the other thing that I wanted to add was a bunch of charging up inside of her actual arm. So the hardest part of that was just getting it all tracked. That was just a ton of trial and error. I actually ended up getting it to work though with the built-in Fusion surface tracker. Basically just a bunch of layers on top of each other. So starting with just like different shockwave elements that I had from some packs, just kind of cutting it all out. I mean, a bunch of these were some hand-drawn veins. This is actually from a different render test that I'd done in weeks previous, but I realized I needed something that would actually be inside of her arms. This kind of piece down here is just what it looks like. It's basically just a black and white silhouette with a bunch of colored plasma around. Anyone who's done Andrew Kramer's After Effects tutorials will know exactly. You can learn how to do this kind of effect. And then that just takes her arm from looking normal, just kind of makes it look like there's mechanics going on underneath it. So to get the actual final kind of displace effect, where the rings kind of explode out, that's just a normal displace node. The pattern that we're building is an ellipse that's being animated, using some fast noise to cut away from the edges, using a duplicate node to just make it happen twice, and then yeah, just using it as a luma pass to cause a little bit of distortion, and the noise just kind of gives it a little more interest so that doesn't look too clean. And I'm just using the background of the plate as a luma mat, adding a little bit of smoke on top, and that just kind of makes it look like it's also heating up the atmosphere around it. Then we just have a heat distortion. Yeah, that's pretty much the shot. And you hand it off to the colorist, and they make it look good. That was almost 2 weeks to make that happen. But it's the shot I'm most proud of. Thank you, Miles.
Well,